All right, we're back at it. And this time, we're here in beautiful Vancouver, Canada, where we're bringing you Next Level Practice podcast episodes live from the floor of the Aesthetic Meeting 2024. This is the annual meeting of the Aesthetic Society, or the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. It's a meeting we never miss. Over these next few days, I'm going to be interviewing our clients and friends from around the industry to bring you up-to-the-minute insights on what's working and what's not when it comes to patient acquisition and practice growth. Here at Influx, we're very serious about keeping up with technological trends and studying how these changes impact the way that our clients grow their businesses. But I, for one, am a big believer that truly setting yourself apart comes down to the nuances. So let's take some time over these next few days to interview people on the ground floor of aesthetic medicine and see what we can learn from them to help you take your practice to the next level. Okay, I'm back, and I've got a familiar face sitting across from me. You know him, and some might even call him a mover and a shaker of the beauty business. I've got my good friend, Dr. Grant Stevens, here with us. Hi, Granto.
Hi, how you doing, Max?
I'm doing very good, and I understand you have somewhere you're running off to.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to keep this brief. I thought it would be fun to kind of turn the tables. I'm usually behind the soundboard, behind the camera as we record Technology of Beauty. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Grant Stevens and I sort of co-created the Technology of Beauty together. I mean, it's really his roster of contacts that makes the show what it is. And he's an okay podcast host. But that's been a really fun ride for coming a little over 3 years now.
Yep.
And actually, what people may not realize, though, is that you were the first ever guest of our own podcast, which
I didn't know that.
Next Level Practices. Well, we've been a little inconsistent. We focus a lot on technology, but we've been a little inconsistent on our episodes. But the first time I ever did a podcast for our own podcast, which we call Next Level Practices, was when Adam and I interviewed you in what later became the Studio for Technology of Beauty.
Uh-huh.
And I went back through your history, and I still love that interview of sort of being a contrarian marketer in plastic surgery. And I feel like I got some good stuff out of you.
I can't wait to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, and because we would sit in your office and talk as we were working on your marketing. You would say, "Oh, I did this, and I got slapped on the, and I put pictures on the internet, and I was told that, I just went. It just became very clear to me how much you had driven the marketing that we do in this industry forward in the early days and blazed a trail. So that was really fun, and now I get to get you back on the show.
It's my pleasure.
And of course, as everyone knows, Dr. Stevens is past president of the Aesthetic Society, and we're here in Vancouver at the Aesthetic Society meeting. So I know you're a busy man here, and I understand that you may be reassuming a new role within the Aesthetic Society. Is that right?
That's correct.
Will you tell us about it?
Sure. I've been asked to chair the Industry Support Committee and help the society work with various members of industry and expand the role of the premier partners and provide other services to our industry supporters in exchange for their support and so forth, and create and adopt a more symbiotic, cooperative interaction between industry and the Aesthetic Society.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I know from getting to produce Technology Beauty with you, speaking to a lot of your colleagues, they've praised you for bringing together that cooperative kind of coexistence between industry and the surgical society here. And I think it's been really interesting to hear how a lot of praise from your peers and your colleagues on that.
Well, it hasn't been exclusively praised. There's been criticism, and there are some that somehow mistakenly feel that industry's the big bad wolf, or they're a problem. I absolutely disagree with them. Without industry, we don't have capital for investment. We don't have goods, services, developing new products. We are in partnership with industry one way or another, or we're stagnant.
Right.
How else are we going to get new products, new goods, new services, and so forth? So I am very, very pro-industry. They have a role. I'm not pro, unethical behavior or false marketing or all the things that I know people are worried about. But the fact is, there are partners. And there are many physicians that are even involved in industry, and that's how AIS, or Aesthetic Innovation Summit, even was started. It's industry, finance, and then entrepreneurial physicians and physicians that are interested in new emerging technologies before they're out. But I'm very pro-industry. I'm happy to be back and helping Kia and Tracy and Jamil as the next 3 presidents, and doing my very best to help my beloved society, which I think of as my child. And
I know you're very passionate about it, and in our many conversations, and you always have your is it Nefertiti sitting there when we do the episodes.
That's
of
correct.
Technology Beauty. Inherent in that praise is, like for example, Renato, Dr. Saltz, always will make a comment when he comes on the show. He's been on, I think, a few times now at some of the conferences, and he's always praising you for it. And I think inherent in that is he understands that you've helped to do it right, because there is that criticism of, and there are perils that can come about from the combination of industry. But like you said, surgeons need industry, but industry needs the medical guidance.
Absolutely.
Or else where do they go?
Right.
Where can things go wrong without that medical guidance?
So that brings up something else, though. If we're not willing to work with industry, others are.
Perfect.
And so we can guide them in the ethical pursuit of new goods, new services, and so forth. Right. So I think it's important that we work with industry, because someone else will certainly work with industry if we're not willing to.
Yeah.
And again, it also allows us to have new products.
Absolutely.
And keep moving with the times.
Right. So on that point, you brought up AIS, the Aesthetic Innovation Summit. So for those of you who don't know about it, myself and some of my team came up a few days early last Wednesday. Today's now Saturday. It's all a blur here in beautiful Vancouver. But we came up for the Aesthetic Innovation Summit, which Grant was the co-chair of. He has been for 5 times now. He's really the driving force behind it. Even though it's put on by our friends Craig at Healthology.
Craig and Maureen at Healthology.
But Grant really drives a lot of the programming, and I've got to be a part of it because of Grant. And we interviewed a number of attendees. We have some mini episodes of the Technology Beauty coming out where you'll get to kind of hear from the ground floor what people's impressions and takeaways are from that show. It's such a different show, and I don't think people understand that. Will you tell people a little bit about it, why it's so different than any other show in aesthetics?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a one-day show. It's not endorsed by any society per se, but it always happens on the Wednesday before the start of the Aesthetic Society show. As Max mentioned, this is our 5th year. We're going to be doing it next year in Austin, Texas on March 19th. Again, it's the Wednesday before the show. It's owned privately by Healthology, not by me. However, I was the co-founder and I am the chair, and we have 2 other co-chairs, and together we put together relevant material and meetings. We bring in industry, we bring in some clinicians, we do bring in the financial markets, and we are free to do whatever we want in that it's non-CME. Our hands are not tied. This year we had a section on exosomes. We had a section on disruptive marketing. We have a section this year on beauty below the belt, or combined surgery to improve the area, the aesthetics below the tummy. We had a keynote speaker talking about what's going on in the marketplace. But most importantly, the one that is so appreciated, we may even have to do 2 of them next year, is Shark Tank. And the Shark Tank presentations are smoking hot. Everyone wants to get on it. And we have sharks that listen, and then we pick the best in show. And it was highly competitive this year. And a lot of fun. And people learn about new. Yeah, everyone loves it.
Yeah.
I read the reviews the other day. Shark Tank kicks ass. It does great.
So similar format to the actual show Shark Tank, where you have seasoned, in that case it's investors. It could be investors here, or it's just people who really understand the aesthetic industry from the industry side, and then there are presenters with new innovations, and then they get comments and judge, and essentially a final judgment from the judges, the Shark Tank judges. Is that right?
And we have VC people, we have private equity, we have bankers, we have family money, or the family funds, family offices. Yeah. We have a number of financial institutions, if you will, that are both in the audience as well as the sharks. So 2 of our sharks were big VCs, and they were aggressive. It was fun. Side. I was asked to give one of the talks last minute because one of the CEOs couldn't show, if you recall. And I had a ball, asking the sharks for $5 million for 20% of this program, or this company.
So very similar to what I love about Technology of Beauty, and the education that I've got getting to sit in the studio for every one of those episodes. I get a very similar feeling when I'm at AIS, and it's unique. And so if you like Technology Beauty, I think you will really love AIS, where you get to hear it's a unique convergence of industry, clinicians and finance is kind of how I would put it. And you don't really get that in many other places. And you get to learn about things that are, fairly upstream before they're really coming to market. And if you want to be ahead of those things, if you want to invest in some of those things maybe, or just think about how you might incorporate them into your practice and start thinking about it early. I just think for those early adopter type doctors, it's a great show to come to.
I would agree.
So where is it again next year? In Austin?
Austin, Texas, March 19th, Wednesday, just before the Aesthetic Society show, this show.
Amazing.
Now I need to excuse myself.
You told me you had 10 minutes, and I was going to say you have 40 seconds left, but I'm going to let you go now. Thank you so much, Grano.
Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Okay, take care.